This segment, our grab bag, 3 quick stories and 1 for each attorney. The first one, I'll start off with Jimmy. Democratic Congressman Bill Pascrell of New Jersey. He wants Rudy Giuliani and several other Trump attorneys to get stripped of their law licenses for what Pascrell calls misconduct, dishonesty, and fraud over their attempts to overturn an election. And Jimmy, listen, to me, he can do all these press conferences, Rudy that is, but prior to getting COVID, in front of every adult shop and crematorium he wants. But when he steps into the courtroom, all of a sudden, magically, he doesn't still allege these same frauds because he knows he'll get in a lot of trouble because he's got no evidence to back it up and he'd be lying under oath. So I think he's got a point. At some point, you guys all, had to pass the bar and you had to swear an oath of conduct and all the rest. Haven't these guys not only stepped over the line but leapfrogged it?
Well, look. When you walk into a court and you file a suit, you're not allowed to go forward and file a frivolous suit, and certainly not one after another, after another, after another. And if you put allegations in a lawsuit and bring it before a court that are found to be baseless or contain untruths, or you make allegations that are proven to be demonstrably false, you can be reprimanded. You can be reprimanded. You can be sanctioned. And there needs to be an investigation into that conduct. And if it's found that that's what you've done, then certainly the bar associations of several states and the federal bar can take action against you.
I'm putting you on this commission here. Did these guys know, was their behavior so dishonest that they should be stripped of their law license?
I don't like to go that far without looking at the particulars, but it certainly looks like several of the lawsuits contained allegations that were demonstrably false and were abandoned once they got into the courtroom, so that the argument before the court, once they came to fruition, were bare and there was nothing there. So it does appear that there's an argument that several frivolous lawsuits have been brought, but again, there would need to be an investigation into each and every allegation. I will say that when you do withdraw, when a different attorney goes in and refuses to embrace the allegations made in the complaint and withdraws them, then I guess that could be categorized as doing the right thing. But it really does look as though many of these lawsuits were baseless.
All right, Mayo, I know when people talk about the death penalty, I'm not going to get into the right or wrong of it, but what the Trump administration's doing as they're going out the door, though, they're not just trying to, squeeze in a few federal executions. They're planning to carry out 5 of them. In the last few hours before Biden takes office, it'd be the deadliest year for death row inmates in 130 years. They're talking about things like firing squads, electrocutions. Whether or not they'll be able to carry it out, I don't know, but this is crazy, right?
Well, the one thing that should never happen in the criminal justice system is that it should not be subject to politics. In particular, at the end of a presidential term, we always debate whether it's proper to pardon individuals and why someone's receiving a pardon. And it's particularly odd because one of the things that President Trump did at a minimum relatively well, according to most people, is criminal justice reform. And that's where, he actually had more than just the individuals who were pardoned on television, but there were some significant changes in terms of the way that we treat crack versus powder cocaine. And there were a number of initiatives to reduce some of the prison time. So to turn around and then attempt to rush through executions is a bit puzzling. But again, when you look at cruel and unusual punishment, there's a reason that we don't have a number of these types of execution. And to use it at the last moment of a person's presidential term is somewhat troubling. So I think that there should be probably success in attempting to stay these executions. And it is, if nothing else, cruel and unusual punishment to have someone put in a position where they're now wondering whether they're going to be subject to a firing squad or whether their execution is going to be expedited based upon a president who's about to leave office.
Yeah, it's almost like it's beat the clock. This last one for you, Doug, and you got several powerful industry groups, including the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, they want Congress to pass a law that gives companies legal protections, making it tougher for people to sue if customers get the virus from their business. Now, a lot of school districts and hospitals are also looking for a similar liability shield. You're the perfect guy to talk about this because you represent clients who have been mistreated by corporations. I'm conflicted on this because I see the story about like a meat processing plant, and the guys literally are betting among themselves how many of their employees are going to get COVID on the line, right? That's easy. But if a business tries to do the right thing, but a person brings in the virus unknowingly, I also can understand why, they shouldn't be held liable. Can we draw a line? Is there a way to punish the egregious ones, but also mitigate that if the company's trying to do the right thing?
Well, we do draw a line. It's called a jury. So it's called a jury, and then you possibly a frivolous lawsuit. Listen, think about what we're talking about here today. We're talking about people not being able to go to court if they're injured. In the other segment, we're talking about people being forced to take a vaccine. And I don't think people realize that these vaccines that you're talking about, there's no possibility for people to go to court. These companies are immune from liability, but that's by statute. So we're talking about people taking vaccines by force. We're talking about companies that make the vaccines not having liability. And we're talking about employers where people go to. They never miss an opportunity to go to the lawmakers and say, the only way we can do this is if we're immune from liability. So basically what you're talking about in all these scenarios is that the common person, the little guy that's just trying to go to work, has no recourse when he's hurt by a vaccine or by his employer.
But what about the little guy who's the employer, who's trying to do the right thing, or the school district, Doug, who says, everybody wants us to open our doors to have in-person learning. We're trying to do it the right way with mitigation and all the rest, and somebody, even with the masks and the distancing, still gets sick. Should the school be held liable?
Well, Rich, you're talking about going to court. That's why we have juries. Juries listen to these cases all the time. And if it's a garbage case, a jury will take the client and the lawyer and throw them right through the doors. They don't work. You have jurors are very smart. If they listen and they say, you know what, this employer, they did something wrong, they endangered this person, they were negligent, they were reckless, then they'll award them, people act as if you don't give the employers or these companies immunity from lawsuits, they can't function. No, we have a justice system in place to do exactly this. You don't have to block liability for them.
And an update on it is, it looks like McConnell is not going to make this liability shield the issue here that'll hold up the stimulus. We're still far from the finish line on that one, but at least on this one, it looks like he's going to back off. Guys, always, I appreciate it, and I cannot tell you how much I look forward to having you guys around a table again so we can argue in person.
Thanks for having us, Rich.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.
Be
Be
well,
good.
everyone.
All right, everyone, when we come back, we'll wrap things up and tell you what we got on store for tomorrow.